So, Joe, we're recording this on Thursday, June 1st. This is officially my first day full-time back at Afford Anything.
Did you stretch out thoroughly before you started?
You literally just saw me stretch.
You don't want to strain something on your first day back.
Exactly. You got to warm up. I'm afraid to look at Slack. Yeah, I haven't looked at Slack for 10 months. I'm afraid to see.
What could have accumulated in 10 months? I mean, really, it's only 10 months. Come on.
Well, welcome to the Afford Anything podcast, the podcast that understands you can afford anything but not everything, that every choice you make is a trade-off against something else. And that applies not just to your money, but to any limited resource you need to allocate, your time, your energy, your attention. So, what matters most? That is the question we're here to answer every other week. We answer questions that come from you, the community. I'm your host, Paula Pant, and my buddy, Joe Saul-Sehy, former financial planner, joins me to answer these questions. What's up, Joe?
I'm super happy to be here to welcome you. I'm the welcoming committee. I should have brought cake, but I'm a dude, so I forgot.
No, you only forgot because you're Joe. Because you're Joe Saul-Sehy.
That is what it's exactly. Spoken like somebody who's known me for a long time. Yes. You forgot because that's your nature.
It takes one to know one. It's mine too. I am the most forgetful.
Well, luckily we didn't
forget. What were we just talking about? Oh.
I was about to segue. I had a ninja segue, Paula.
All right, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Oh, but it's ruined if you're like, oh, let's pay attention to it. Yeah. Okay, here it is. But luckily we didn't forget these 4 awesome questions we're going to answer today.
Wow, what a segue. Oh,
you're welcome.
OMG. So we're going to start with a question from Paul, who is wondering how to start over after a stroke. He had not quite a career-ending disability, but a career-changing disability. What comes next?
Hello, Paula and Joe. Let me start by saying if I mess this up, it's because of a small stroke that I suffered, that or I'm nervous. My wife and I are 48, and we own our home outright. It's got 2 apartments that our kids are in, and we make about $1,000 a month combined from them. It's really more to give them a place to stay versus rent. We have something like $1.6 million in retirement accounts, and my wife owns her own small business as well as the property it's on. Figure $3 million at the cheapest, but probably closer to $5 million realistically. In a good year, my wife could make $1 million. In a down year, she still pulls in $200K. I have 2 investment properties that should start making money next year when they're finished, but there's no guarantee of it. And I still owe something like $400K on them. So with that said, I haven't mentioned my income. It's because I'm on disability from the stroke that I mentioned before. I'm very fortunate that my company has an excellent insurance plan, and I have up to a year of long-term disability at $10K a month. I'm doing pretty well, but I still can't really move my right arm or hand, and I am, of course, right-handed. I can type slowly with my left hand, but between that and the mild aphasia I suffer from, they don't want to put me out there, and I don't really disagree. I plan to stay on my insurance as long as possible, but I'm not sure I want to go back. I've enjoyed being around the house, and I feel like I should go back, but I don't want to. My question is, what do I do? I know it's impossible to answer a question that big, but I feel kind of lost. It's likely too early to retire. I make a lot more money when I'm working, probably twice as much. Realistically, my existing work will probably disappear the minute I come off disability, leaving me unemployed. I know you can't make a specific recommendation, but I'm a little lost here on working, not working, you name it. Help.
Paul, first of all, thank you for calling in. I'm so sorry to hear about your recent stroke. I'm also so relieved to hear that, all things considered, you're doing reasonably well. It sounds like you're on the road to recovery, and as your question reflects, on the road to starting the next chapter in life. So here's what I'm hearing. You have an enormous amount of financial security. You own your primary residence outright, free and clear. You have $1.6 million in retirement accounts. It sounds as though the only debt that you have is $400,000 that you owe on 2 investment properties that are currently under construction. Your wife makes between $200,000 to $1 million per year, and the value of her business is worth somewhere between $3 to $5 million. And your children are adults and able to take care of themselves, with the added help of some affordable housing that they're able to rent from you that keeps them close by. So it sounds as though financially, there's no pressing reason for you to return back to work after your year of long-term disability is over. The only reason that I hear for you to stay would be for the sake of remaining on that workplace insurance, since the insurance that you're getting from your work is almost certainly going to be significantly better than anything that your wife as a small business owner would likely be able to access.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a key component, is finding out, without that health insurance option available, finding out what health insurance is going to cost now. Because what really concerns me, Paula, is thinking about Paul's situation like he's a business. And it's, what does it cost every day to keep the lights on? Once he knows what that is, then it will be much easier to walk backwards through the nice asset base he and his spouse have built up, position those effectively, and make sure that he is where you think he is. And I certainly also think he is. I would just want to make sure that he is okay financially, and that that cost is not above what they have already accumulated.
Right. The health insurance is going to be the wild card. But the good news is, because they have so much financial stability, even if they have to pay an extraordinarily high premium for health insurance through his wife's small business, it sounds as though they'll be able to pay out of pocket for high-cost Cadillac insurance.
Yeah.
Because with a paid-off home, with adult children, it sounds as though, Paul, that you and your wife have an otherwise relatively low cost of living, yet significant income and significant assets. And so, other than the health insurance question, I don't see any compelling reason for you to stay in a job that you don't want to be in, particularly after your year of long-term disability ends. And so that opens up the question, what do you want to do next? More specifically, how do you go about figuring that out? It creates the what color is your parachute question.
Yeah, because I interpreted this not at all as a question of, do I go back to this job? I mean, he clearly made that point. He doesn't really want to go back. I thought it was bigger. I thought it was specifically what you're talking about, Paula. What am I going to do? And that becomes a pretty exciting question, because Paul has all of these opportunities available. And I think for that one, once you know that the monthly number is taken care of, and you know where your health insurance is coming from, then I think at that point, it is the big question of, what legacy does Paul want to leave?
And what is the intersection, or where is the intersection of his interests, his skills, the opportunities that he can access, and the problems he can solve, or the projects that he is excited to work on? Right? It's an exciting question. It's really a question about how to make a career pivot, right? When you put to the side everything that got him here, put to the side the net worth, the assets, the stroke, right? If you look past all of that and approach the question in a vacuum, the question fundamentally is, I have financial security. I'm 48 years old. I want to make a career pivot. I want to start that second chapter. How do I figure out what I want to do next? There are a few episodes, a few interviews that we've done on the Afford Anything podcast that have been directly about this. Jenny Blake, who is the author of a book called Pivot, which is precisely about this topic, she was our guest on episode 81, which you can access at affordanything.com/episode 81. And among the many frameworks that she introduces, she has a particular framework called the pivot hexagon, in which you look at 6 values: money, adventure, freedom, time, structure, and security, and weigh potential opportunities with regard to how it ranks among these 6 values. We also did an episode with Ashley Stahl, Stahl. She's the author of a book called U-Turn. That was episode 321, affordanything.com/episode 321. And she describes 10 core skill sets that can help you chart a career path that aligns with your traits. In fact, beyond core skill sets, she talks about your core nature, which is essentially the core of who you are, your core skill sets, and your core values. And so using each of those frameworks, who you are, what you can do, and what you value, she helps you rank various skills or attributes and then cross-reference that with different types of jobs. So I'd recommend those 2 episodes, episode 321 and episode 81. We'll link to both in the show notes.
I think on top of those excellent recommendations, Paula, you have to think about mindset. I know that whenever I've spoken with some great career counselors, you have to go into this with the heart of an explorer, not somebody who thinks they're going to get this right away. You're not going to find the perfect spot immediately, which is why I think that is so important to think, okay, I'm going to go in and start looking for this thing, which means it's then going to be okay. You're going to take a lot of pressure off yourself to find the right fit immediately. But I do like the idea that both of those past guests talked about, which is, looking at what your skill set is and what fires you up. I think that's easily the first place to start. I loved when I was a financial planner, I loved talking about money. I loved giving people advice about money. The part that I couldn't stand was the individual one-on-one meetings. I didn't like that sometimes I cared more about people's goals than I felt that they cared. And look at where we are today. I get to sit here and talk about money with you and get rid of the stuff that I didn't like through a simple, just not simple, frankly, switch where I didn't get it right away. But it led me to the stuff that really does light me up.
Right. And that speaks to the importance of talking to people who are in the field that you are thinking about entering to find out what their day-to-day reality is like. Because often what we think someone does from the outside looking in is very different from what someone actually does. That notion that life is a picture, but each day is a pixel. The way that they spend each pixel, right, can be incredibly different from the picture that outsiders see.
I remember in college, I took a public relations course. Our professor had a public relations professional come in and talk to us. And to your point, Paula, one of the first things the pro said, all this stuff you're learning is fantastic, but I don't use any of this during my day-to-day work. Like I do none of this. It's great background, but you're not going to be doing this.
Right. So, Paul, when you have a few ideas about potential new careers or new businesses, use the power of LinkedIn and Twitter to reach out to people and see if you can chat with them on the phone or on Zoom for even just 10 minutes so that you can ask them about what the day-to-day experience of their work lives are like. How much time do they spend sending email or sitting in meetings or replying to Slack messages or handling invoicing or filling out expense reports, right? All of the administrative stuff around a job. How much time do they spend dealing with that? How much time do they work within their core unique thing that they were hired to do, right? Their core unique skill, their core unique value. And then how much time do they spend doing other things, perhaps navigating office politics, perhaps traveling, perhaps whatever it is that they do? What is their day-to-day like? And how is it different than what they initially expected? And how has it changed in recent years? And in what ways do they anticipate it may change in coming years? If they could start their career over, would they have picked the same field? Why or why not? What are the attributes of a person that they think would make that person best suited to that particular field? And conversely, what attributes would make a person a poor fit? Right? Those are the questions that you'll want to be asking. But what's wonderful about your situation is that it sounds as though compensation doesn't need to be the crux of it.
That's the best piece.
Right. You can, if you want to, take a pay cut to do something that you might enjoy more. And your task right now is to do the due diligence to test or validate the hypothesis that this is something that you are likely to enjoy more. Also, if what you might want to do requires any kind of retraining, and I say this as somebody who went back to school for the last year and just graduated, during that retraining process, you'll discover a lot more about the field and about adjacent or related fields.
I think there is not only opportunity for that, Paula, but also because a consistent paycheck may not be necessary. I think him also exploring, if he decides it's appropriate, he can look into things like consulting on what he clearly was successful doing before his stroke, where he's maybe doing project work in that same area, but for himself. So he's bringing in money when he wants to, and when he doesn't feel like it, he doesn't have to.
Paul, I think it might be worthwhile to talk to other people who have also recovered from a stroke or who have experienced a mid-career disability to gather stories, see how their relationship with work changed, how their outlook, their values, their goals, how all of that shifted. And their stories, of course, may be different from yours. The standard your mileage may vary. But if you speak with enough people, 5, 10, 15, say aim for at least 10, you may start to hear some broad themes or patterns emerge. Paul, there's one other podcast episode that I will recommend. Episode 313, affordanything.com/episode 313. That was our interview with Gorik Ng, a career coach and advisor at Harvard who specializes in working with first-generation low-income students. His interview was not about midlife career pivots per se. It was more focused on starting your career off in the correct manner. But as a Harvard career coach, he has a lot of nuggets of wisdom that he shares throughout the interview about career management at the 30,000-foot level. So I'll link to that in the show notes as well. Thank you for your question, Paul, and best of luck with the pivot. Call back in a few months and give us an update on what you've decided to do. I think this whole community would love to hear how your story continues. So thank you so much, Paul. I hope you enjoyed that discussion. We're trying something new on YouTube. We are, instead of running the full Ask Paula episode, we are breaking out each question into its own video. So let me know what you think. Do you like this new format better? Would you rather that we run the full episode? Drop your feedback in the comments. We read every single one. Thank you so much for being part of the Afford Anything community.